Before we start the last Fallas video, here are some more questions for you. Let's see if you already know or if you need to watch the video and find out. Number 1. When did the firefighters become a part of La Crema? 2. True or false? Back in the 60s and the 70s, barcos falleros, fallero ships, used to come bringing tourists from Portugal and England. And 3. Which major artist was commissioned to create this controversial falla? Stick around and find out. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's video is the last part of this 3-part series on Las Fallas. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, please start there, okay? They'll be linked below. You'll get the origin story, the history, and way more cool stuff about these festivals. As always, keywords are down here with Spanish and Chinese translations. If you're an English learner, pause this video now and have a look, okay? Trust me, it'll help. Let's go! Again, a brief summary of Las Fallas and Valencia: fireworks, firecrackers, bonfires, pagan celebration of spring, religious celebration of carpenter saints, firefighters, giant wooden tableaus, explosions, Valencian community being an autonomous community that is self-governing, and the language of Valenciano is somewhat similar to Catalan according to some people, but do not say that to the Valencianos. Las Fallas are officially registered by UNESCO, and between 1 to 2 million tourists visit the city each year during these 19 days. So remember when we said that firefighters come from all over Spain for the last night when all the fallas get burned down? Well, that wasn't always the case. It didn't become a thing for firefighters to attend the fallas until 1891. Oh boy. Again, here are the 8 events. Let's continue. Els Castells and la Nit del Foc. Los Castillos y la Noche de Fuego, the castles and the night of fire, 城堡 and 火之夜. So basically, every night from the 15th to the 18th, there are firework displays at La Turia, the park / dry riverbed which runs through the center of Valencia. And each night the display increases in complexity and grandeur. And the last night is called the Night of Fire, Nit del Foc. Side note, I honestly wonder what happens to the local wildlife. Like, have these traditions somehow created like a localized migratory pattern for the city's rats, pigeons, parrots, cockroaches? Like, I'm just curious. Fun fact, the identity of the very first Fallera Mayor, the female representative of Las Fallas, is a bit of a mystery. So, Pepita Samper Bono was Miss Valencia, and then she won Miss Spain. Now, after winning Miss Spain, she was brought back to Valencia by, obviously, Los Valencianos, the following year to represent Las Fallas. However, many sources don't name her as an actual Fallera Mayor. Cavalcada del Foc. Cavalcada del Fuego? Cavalry of Fire? Fire Parade? 火游行. So basically, on the last night of Las Fallas, on March 19th, a massive parade snakes its way through the city center. According to tradition, this parade is meant to purify the city through fire. There's something called correfocs, fire ones, which I'm very curious to see. Pyrotechnics, floats, of course, bands, musicians, dancers, the falleras, costumes, more pyrotechnics. It's gonna be a wild scene, and I'm really excited. Fire fact: remember when we learned what the mascletao was? So they weren't always like that. Before the 40s, mascletas were not the same as they were today. Instead, the Valencianos did something called Correcalles, street runs, where basically lines of firecrackers were hung, not unlike power lines, through the streets. And as they were lit, people would sprint to follow the explosions as these giant lines of firecrackers boomed and banged their way through the streets. Basically, in the north, in Pamplona, people ran with the bulls. Still do. And here in Valencia, people ran with the firecrackers. La Crema, the crowning glory, the burning, shao. So, La Crema is the final night of Las Fallas when all the fallas are burnt to symbolize new beginnings, rebirth, phoenix, reborn from the ashes, a new chance for the upcoming year. Yeah, all that. So, the night of La Crema, the children's fallas are burnt at 8 p.m. to make sure they go to bed early. And the other big fallas are burnt starting at 10 p.m. However, there is a separate schedule for the fallas of sección especial, for the top fallas. And people often attend the burning with a scarf or a mask over their face for maybe not obvious reasons. While these fallas are obviously meant to feature wood, they also feature styrofoam, paint, glues, plastic, etc. And it really doesn't make for a healthy respiratory experience. Also, according to the firefighters themselves, accelerants are often used as part of the process, especially when it's rainy. And speaking of that, it is the firefighters' jobs to make sure that everything happens in a controlled form of chaos. Also, to make their jobs a little bit easier, thankfully the fallas are also reviewed and they must be approved the week prior to La Crema to make sure that the fallas themselves and also the space meet safety standards. Because public property must also be protected or moved. Things like the trash cans, bus stops. And for example, beside the falla of El Pilar, nearby buildings are covered with a fireproof tarp to protect them since they're just a bit too close. The engineering also matters, right? The fallas are designed so that the axis stays fairly stable through the burning and that the figurines on the side go down first. Falla fact. Of course, wood is the main star of Las Fallas, but today the fallas are often built with polyethylene foam, basically styrofoam, since it's lighter, cheaper, easier to mold and build with, and easier to burn. However, as you can imagine, the en masse burning of this stuff is good for neither our respiratory systems nor the environment. However, so scientist falleros falleros científicos, who knows? They're both. These guys at the University of Valencia began experimenting with fallas made from rice straw and rice husks, both of which need to be burned seasonally during rice production anyway. And 2 fallas were made using rice stuff in 2019. Falla fact. Salvador Dalí himself was commissioned for the creation of a falla in 1954. And it was an interesting one. The centerpiece was a bullfighter with butterfly wings. Above his head was a dead bull, a dead and bleeding bull, hung from a type of helicopter-esque machine with eagle wings and claws and the horned head of a frog. And they were in the middle of a bull ring with arms and legs coming out of the stance. And behind it all was a giant statue of a face, half Dalí, half Picasso. So obviously the bizarre design was straying from tradition, and it was also a pain in the butt for poor Octavio Vincent, the falla artist, to build. So between that and the provocative topic, the falla received some pretty strong backlash and criticism from the locals. Falla fact. There used to be a special train, Tren de Falleros, that brought visitors from Madrid to Valencia. So it was slow. After about 10 hours of travel, the visitors would be welcomed at the royal garden with showcases of traditional dance and song. It inaugurated on March 18th of 1927, and of course the purpose was to spur the tourism economy. And it worked. So the first year in 1927, there were a grand total of 59 fallas, which is a 55% increase from the previous year. And after the first year, additional trains were added coming from Barcelona, then Zaragoza, Burgos, and even, Andalucía. Unfortunately, in 1974, this train ended its last run due to the rising popularity of, personal motorized vehicles. However, in the 60s and 70s, ships came across the Atlantic for Las Fallas. There were literal fallero ships, barcos falleros, that hailed from South America to allow the returns of thousands of Valenciano immigrants during Las Fallas. And the first one came from Chile in 1961. Pretty cool. Before we say goodbye, here are the answers to the trivia questions. Well, that concludes the final part of our 3-part video series on Las Fallas. The last 2 weeks have been absolute insanity, and I have to say, I enjoyed every single second of it. Yeah. We'll do it again next year. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed all the information. And again, if you think this is all super cool and amazing, please share this video with a friend that you think might find it cool and amazing too. Please give it a like, give it a subscribe. It's free and it really helps the algorithm monster. I promise I don't spam videos. I'm a teacher and that's what I love to do the most. Until next time, stay vital and enjoy life.